Chapter 2231 Yang Xinshin, directly attacking the military. The energy you gathered in such a hurry is far inferior to what I've prepared for nearly half a year. Zhang Yi narrowed his eyes and no longer took any offensive measures. Because now, he had to use less than 50% of Ling's energy on defense to fight against Zhenglu, who was in a rampage state. As for the means of attack, we can just use the space bomb he left behind in advance. Zhenglu still hasn't figured out what the space bomb is, so he can't crack this ability. His murderous intent then transformed into the even more powerful Ruizhan, breaking through the air and attacking Zhang Yi. Zhang Yi also used his various abilities to the fullest, whether it was his own acceleration or the use of the Swamp of Time, to slow down the surrounding space. He made sure to minimize the consumption of Ling by Ruizhan. He was flying through the air at a high speed, and dimensional doors opened up in the air. As long as he wanted, he could quickly pass from in front of Zhenglu to behind Zhenglu. Attacks came from Zhenglu again and again. While Zhang Yi used Ling's defense to resist, he was also adapting to the speed of his attacks. After resisting for more than 10 times, Zhang Yi finally began to adapt to this speed. Zhenglu was afraid of being attacked by an unknown space bomb again, so he did not dare to chase Zhang Yi and attack him at high speed. So he began to take the initiative on the battlefield again. The range of the binding chains is limited, and Zhenglu does not have the courage to fight Ling's human body in close combat within the maximum distance. He had already seen how terrifying the strength of this human body was. Therefore, the best way to fight is to use Ruizhan to carry out medium and short-range attacks. Zhang Yi, on the other hand, kept a maximum distance and began to harass him. His fingers were put together to form a sword, and he carved into the void quickly. Cracks in the void appeared in various parts of Zhenglu's body. However, after personally solving the problem of his vitals, Zhenglu no longer had any obvious weaknesses. Therefore, this level of attack would only cause him pain but would not cause fatal damage. Zhang Yi was not in a hurry. This was destined to be an extremely long and fierce battle. He was betting that Zhenglu would lose patience first. Because within the Wulwan Empire, urgent war reports had reached Zhenglu's ears like snowflakes. He will be anxious. Zhang Yi was not in a hurry to have a life-and-death duel with Zhenglu. He was waiting for something to be done. Before that thing is completed, you must not fight a life-and-death battle with Zhenglu. And that thing was what Yang Xinshin was asked to do, to eliminate the self-destruction system of the Wulwan Empire. The entire Wulwan Empire is located under a super underground extinct volcano. The last time this volcano erupted was more than 1,000,000 years ago. The Wulwan Empire moved here and built a country on the crater for the sake of this natural defense. They made arrangements to detonate the dormant volcano and force it to erupt whenever there was a threat of extinction. The diameter of this volcano is over 30 kilometers. Once it erupts, it can destroy the entire Uluan Empire in the shortest time. Zhang Yi now needs Yang Xinshin to dispose of this self-destruct system. He doesn't want the Huashu Kingdom's troops to perish together with the people of the Wulwan Empire. While the outside world was in chaos, Yang Xinshin and his group had already sneaked into the central urban area. At this time, they were underground, in front of a mechanical structure buried deep underground. Professor Da Vinci put on something similar to a stethoscope, placed it on the mechanical equipment to listen to the movement, and after carefully testing it with the equipment, he stood up. He looked at Yang Xinshin, Liang Yu, and Bam and said, "This is the detonation point." Brian wagged his tail excitedly. "Great. As long as we destroy it, our mission will be accomplished." Professor Da Vinci put away the equipment and said coldly, "You're too happy too soon. If my guess is correct, there must be at least tens of thousands of these things. If we search for them one by one and dismantle them, it will take at least 3 hours. And if any of them are compromised, they could potentially explode directly." In other words, he looked at Yang Xinshin. It's impossible to physically dismantle the detonator. Upon hearing this, Yang Xinshin just nodded lightly. Since this is the case, there is no other way. There was no worry on her face, as if everything was within her expectations. Professor Da Vinci crossed his arms in confusion and asked, "Did you know this would be the outcome?" Yang Xinxin turned around and walked towards the outside world. Although we have obtained most of the intelligence about the Wulwan Empire, this system is extremely secret. Even those silver-armored generals don't know the details. They can only confirm it by seeing it with their own eyes. Professor Da Vinci looked confused. "What are you going to do?" Yang Xinxin glanced at him and smiled faintly. "Just use the simplest method. In fact, this system has a master switch. Just turn it off and all problems will be solved." Brian was baffled. He looked at Yang Xinxin with a puzzled expression and asked, "Didn't you just say that you didn't have enough information about this self-destruct system?" This time, before Yang Xinxin could speak, Professor Da Vinci explained the answer to the question. If you can't solve the problem, then why not just solve the person who caused the problem? A dog is a dog. Its IQ is still not enough. Woof. Woof woof woof. Brian glared at Da Vinci in protest. Da Vinci looked at Yang Xinxin and said, "The switch of the self-destruct system should be in the hands of the highest authority in the empire." "Right." Yang Xinxin nodded. "It is in the hands of the emperor of the Wulwan Empire. So, we just need to control the emperor and prevent him from issuing orders." Da Vinci narrowed his eyes and said, "How are you going to do this? This should be very difficult." The Wulwan Empire must have considered various possibilities, including the possibility that the enemy would not allow them to activate the self-destruct system, and they also made designs. If Yang Xinxin and his men tried to break into the palace by force without knowing the terrain, by the time they found the emperor, the other party would probably have already activated their automatic system. Yang Xinxin smiled faintly. "You just need to escort me to the palace and leave the rest to me." Leonardo da Vinci did not ask any more questions because he knew that asking further questions would involve the other party's abilities, which could not be explored. But after communicating for a period of time, he found that Yang Xinxin's intelligence was very high, even smarter than he was when he was young. A proud man like Leonardo da Vinci always admired wise men, so he decided to listen to Yang Xinxin's words. "Okay, so what should we do next?" Da Vinci looked at Yang Xinxin and asked. "Let's go to their military headquarters first." Yang Xinxin smiled and said lightly. Chapter 2232 Military Defeat. The military headquarters of the Wulwan Empire is located in the southwest corner of the central urban area, about 50 kilometers away from the imperial palace. This is one of the most important departments in the empire because the military has great power. It not only controls the entire army of the Wulwan Empire, but also involves many areas that affect the security of the empire. For example, the operation of the energy tower system is also directly controlled by the military. And they also have the authority to launch Doomsday weapons. But now, these Doomsday weapons are no longer effective. Under the 3 super battleships all-around surveillance of the entire Wulwan Empire, any long-range weapons that want to launch an attack on the Huashu coalition forces will be shot down. At this time in the Imperial Army, since Zheng Lu went to hunt down Zhang Yi, the highest commander at this time was the Chief of General Staff Bing Lihuan. She sits in the military headquarters, commanding troops in various areas. But right now, the military is in chaos. All fronts are shrinking, and in terms of combat power, only the top combat power can fight against the invaders. However, in terms of army and war weapons, they were far behind the mechanical army brought by Zhang Yi. If there is a generation gap in the technological level of the armies, then the battle will be a one-sided crushing defeat. The war launched by Colombia against the Middle East at the end of the last century has already taught the human world a lesson on this point. The mechanical army's crushing of the mechanical war beasts of the Wulwan Empire is visible to the naked eye and can be described as a devastating defeat. If it weren't for the geographical advantage and sufficient logistical supplies, the defense line would have been breached long ago. But even so, the border defense has always been in a state of emergency. The entire strategic command center was in chaos, with requests for reinforcements coming one after another. Bing Lihuan frowned tightly and loudly commanded the various troops, asking them to do their best to withstand the enemy's offensive. In this battle, she was helpless. Because in just less than 2 hours, Their once impregnable defenses were all broken by the enemy. Whether it was the iron curtain of the sky or the steel torrent, it was directly penetrated by the opponent. It was as if the other side had a genius tactical expert who had calculated their troops' strength and combat habits and targeted them precisely. They have no advantage in terms of military strength, tactics, advanced mutants, or the level of war machinery. Even their geographical advantage was almost gone. The invading Huashu army was very familiar with the terrain here, and there was no confusion even when they entered the street fighting stage. Chief of Staff, the first line of defense is in critical condition. The last line of defense is about to be breached. We need to move into the city for street fighting. Chief of Staff, the fifth line of defense is in danger. Our mecha beasts are simply unable to resist the enemy's giant mechanical life forms. The cries of emergency continued to come, and facing the situation, Bing Lihuan sighed in her heart that the designer of this war was a terrible genius tactician. On the other hand, she put on a stern face and gave a cold order. Notify the front line, fight to the last soldier, and absolutely do not retreat. We absolutely cannot allow any foreigners to invade the central city. What we need to do now is to delay time and wait for our marshal to return. Now all she could pray for was that Zhenglu would kill the opponent's top warrior as soon as possible and then return to save the bad situation. The true meaning of the universe, the limit of civilization, lies in those with special abilities. A single extraordinary being can shake the foundations of an ancient civilization. But at this moment, the entire command center building suddenly shook violently, accompanied by a deafening roar. Boom! All the soldiers who were working intensely stumbled. Bing Lihuan quickly stabilized his body and frowned like a sharp sword. "What's going on?" she asked sharply. Soon, a soldier reported, "Chief of Staff, our command center building suddenly sank into the ground." Bing Lihuan's pupils suddenly shrank, and a chill arose in her heart. She understood that the enemy had already reached the central city area and had even reached the military headquarters. This is terrifying, because the military headquarters is too close to the Imperial Palace. If something happens here, then the Imperial Palace may also be in crisis. However, thinking of the powerful security force in the palace and the powerful means possessed by the Imperial royal family, Bing Lihuan tried hard to calm himself down. Boom! The command center continued to fall. From the outside, the ground around this huge high-rise building had turned into a deep pit, as if it had been stepped on hard by a giant god. The entire building was sinking rapidly. All of this was Brian's doing. Professor Da Vinci crossed his arms, staring at the command center building from the side, and said lightly, "Although they can build this command center building with materials that can resist supernatural attacks, they can't build the entire Earth with such materials, right?" Initially, he planned to attack the building directly, but after detecting its special material, he changed his plan. Just let Brian increase the gravity of the command center building and the surrounding area with a diameter of 2 kilometers to make the ground sink deeply. After a while, glass shattered in a room above the building. A female lizard man with an extremely cold appearance, wearing bright silver armor, flew into the air. A large number of lizard men followed closely behind, glaring in all directions, trying to find out where the enemy who attacked the military was. But unexpectedly, the other party had no intention of hiding his whereabouts at all. Professor Da Vinci and Brian appeared here openly. Humans and dogs are creatures that do not exist underground, so they recognize them at a glance. Damn human! How dare you attack the military? Die! Many lizard men roared, drew their weapons, or rushed forward at close range. Powerful energy rays were directed at Professor Da Vinci and Brian. Professor Da Vinci still had that sour face. He casually took out the toy-like pistol from his coat, pointed it forward, and pulled the trigger. A light purple light shot towards the lizard men like a beam from a flashlight, and it didn't look like it had any killing power at all. But when the light beam swept across the lizard men, their bodies suddenly swelled up in midair, their facial features began to distort, and their muscles turned purple, as if every cell in their body was becoming cancerous. Puff, puff, puff. A large number of lizard men exploded in midair, with blood and internal organs splattering everywhere. Stay with me. We'll try to get you more updates. Please like and subscribe and share the video with your friends. Love you all.